Greetings. My name is Rebecca Lee McCarthy, and I'm an instructor at South Seattle Community College in West Seattle. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about grading rubrics, what they are, why students like them, why instructors use them, and also where you can find them in Canvas, which is our new learning management system here at South Seattle Community College. But before I start talking a little bit about grading rubrics, I want to suggest that you minimize any distractions that you may find in your environment before listening to this presentation. If somebody is watching television in the same room you're at, you might want to go into another room. Go ahead and pause this video, minimize any distractions, and then when you are ready, come on back and join us. Before I will tell you where to find grading rubrics in the Canvas learning system, let's take a little bit of time and talk about what a grading rubric is and why we use them. What is a grading rubric? Well, a grading rubric is basically a type of a checklist that outlines assignment guidelines and expectations. It tells a student about what the specific criteria is an instructor is looking at before they actually grade you and why that criteria is important. So in general, it becomes a very important roadmap for students regarding how they can complete an assignment and how they can get the best grade out of that assignment. In this sense, it really takes the mystery out of assignment composition. You'll know exactly what you need to do, why you need to do it, and what is expected of you by your instructor. But it's important for you to know also that a grading rubric is important for instructors. Indeed, it is also a roadmap for instructors. So I'm going to take a few minutes and explain why I use grading rubrics as well. However, I may not be your instructor. Still, my philosophy about grading rubrics might actually match your instructor's philosophy as well, as many of us find grading rubrics are helpful in the same way. Why do I use grading rubrics? Well, first of all, it helps me keep in mind exactly what I am grading and why. It takes the mystery out of grading for myself. I don't randomly grade a student, but I too have a checklist or a roadmap that I need to go off of. This allows me also to let the student know better and to communicate better about grades and why I am awarding particular grades. And this actually helps with, I think, student-instructor relationships. But of super importance is the fact that grading rubrics will allow me to better align assignments and expectation with student learning outcomes. Student learning outcomes are usually different types of outcomes that we hope a student achieves by the time they finish a particular class or a program at their college or university. For example, at South Seattle Community College, our student learning outcomes include communication, composition, human relations, critical thinking skills and problem solving, technology, personal responsibility, and information literacy. When I compose a grading rubric, I compose the elements expected to be achieved in a particular grade in relation to these student learning outcomes. For example, did the student turn the assignment in on time? That would fall under personal responsibility. Did the student give me a cleanly written assignment, one with few grammatical errors or punctuation errors? If so, that falls under the student learning outcome of communication. Did the student remember to critically think about the subject at hand, giving different elements, including citations? Well, then that might fall under critical thinking and problem-solving skills. So it is important for me as an instructor to be able to see the point of the assignment, how the assignment actually aligns with the student learning outcomes, and why it's actually relevant to our class. Ultimately, though, it also allows me to give transparency in grading. It takes away from the grading mystery game, or why did you give me that grade? I don't know about you, but I think all of us as students at one time or another has wondered that. How the heck did I get that grade? And how does this professor actually come to the conclusion that I deserved a C rather than an A? So having transparency in the grading process is extremely important, not only for the student because it minimizes frustrations, but also for the instructor because it minimizes frustrations. So let's take a few minutes to reflect on what we've learned about here. Ask yourself this question. What is a grading rubric? Is it a checklist of requirements for a particular assignment? Is it a roadmap of instructions for students and the instructor? Or possibly it is a funny looking cube with colors on it. Well, if you picked A and B, you're absolutely right. And if you can solve a Rubik's Cube, you're brilliant. Personally, I always took the color off of the cubes and rearranged them. But of course, that would be cheating, wouldn't it? Now, let's talk a little bit about where we can find grading rubrics in the Canvas learning system. Grading rubrics for every assignment, if your instructor is using grading rubrics, can be found in the assignment at the course, and it can be found by going to the assignment and clicking on this little gear icon that you can find at the top right hand side of the assignment. Here we go. If you see here, this is a picture of our Canvas learning system, and on the top right hand side of this particular assignment we can see the gear. If I was to click on that gear, it would give me several different options. I can mark everything as red because this is a discussion forum example, or I can show rubric. You'll want to click on the show rubric option in Canvas, and then a rubric should pop up. But it's important to know that not all assignments have this little gear sign on them. Discussion forums does, but formal assignments sometimes don't. And in that case, you don't need to click on anything. All you will have to do is scroll all the way down to see the grading rubric associated with the particular assignment. So keep that in mind when you're in Canvas, that sometimes scrolling down the page will show the grading rubric. But again, not all instructors use grading rubrics. It's a good practice to ask your instructor if he or she does use a grading rubric in this class. And if you don't see a grading rubric, you might want to request one, because it may be helpful to them as well. So let's check this out in the Canvas environment itself and see how this works. I'm in a particular class that I teach online. This is a CMST 275, and it happens to be online communication. But this example is also good for many other classes. Once in the Canvas system, you'll want to navigate to an assignment. We're going to look at a couple assignments in this particular class. One assignment that will demonstrate the gear option to find the grading rubric, and another assignment that will demonstrate the scrolling down option to find a grading rubric. So let's start with a discussion. Here's an example of a discussion for week 1 in one of the courses I teach. I'm going to click on into that. First, what you're going to see is instructions for this particular assignment. When assignment is due, what the rationale and the connection of the assignment is to course objectives and student outcomes, the discussion expectations themselves, and what I'm asking the students to do. So you have all the instructions you need here, but additional instructions can also be found in the grading rubric. So let's go up here to the right and find our little gear icon. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to go down to show rubric. Now you'll have a pop-up window, and here is the grading rubric. This is for a discussion actually, and all my discussions have the same grading rubric. I ask students to make an initial post by the due date. In this case, it is Wednesday evening, and that falls under personal responsibility. As you can see, what I did is I aligned the expectation with the student learning outcome as we talked about earlier. I expect students to make posts using strong writing skills. I want them to include at least one quote from the assigned readings using MLA citation form. I would like students to answer all the questions asked and make sure that their initial post is at least 150 words in length. I make sure that they do 3 posts, that they respond to their classmates, they respond to me, and so on and so forth. But as you can see, what I have here is a checklist of all the different things I expect when I grade a discussion post. This way students know what I'm looking for, and I also remember specifically what I need to be grading on. So that's one example of where we can find a grading rubric in an assignment that happens to have a little gear. But what if the gear sign isn't there? Well, let's take a look at one of those assignments. I'm going to go back to the modules, and in my classroom that is found under the Home tab. I'm going to scroll down to a different assignment. Here is an assignment for social media. And this assignment is worth 10 points. But if you notice, there's no gear sign up here in the upper right-hand corner. So this goes ahead and tells me that if there is a rubric assigned to this particular assignment, I'm going to find that rubric by scrolling down my page. So let's go ahead and do that. And here it is. This is the Google Plus Profile Grading Rubric. My students are using social media and learning how to use social media. And here we can see exactly how I'm going to grade the assignment. Did the student complete the assignment by the assignment deadline? Again, that falls under personal responsibility. Did the student submit the correct URL for this assignment? That's a technology student learning outcome. Was the student Google Plus profile filled out fully? That's a critical thinking and problem solving process, simply because they have to look around for things. Was the student's Google Plus profile included in the include a professional looking picture or image, and so on and so forth. So here again we have all the different requirements for this particular assignment, and students have a better idea of what they need to do. Of course, don't forget to look at the instructions in the main body of the assignment as well, because that is just as important. So now we know where to find the grading rubrics in the Canvas system. And let's take a little moment to review some of the things we've learned today. So don't forget, a grading rubric is a checklist and a type of roadmap for you and your instructor. A grading rubric will also tell you exactly how and why an instructor gave you a grade that he or she awards. A grading rubric can be found in Canvas simply by clicking on the gear sign in the upper right-hand side of the corner of an assignment, or by scrolling all the way down on the page. Thank you for listening to this presentation. I truly hope that you found it helpful and that you find the instructions about where to find the grading rubric kind of takes the mystery out of the process. Have a great day. Thank you. Goodbye.